JIMIN hides Jungkook's love letter for 2 years. When the secret unfolds, their world changes forever. What's inside will leave you breathless. Don't open that drawer. The words spilled from JIMIN's mouth like a gunshot, sharp, sudden, a shiver slicing through the dim air of the studio room. Taehyung froze, fingers inches from the worn mahogany drawer nestled beneath JIMIN's writing desk. His brows furrowed in confusion. Why? Taehyung's voice was barely above a whisper. The soft hum of the rain outside painted shadows on the wooden floor, and something about the tension in JIMIN's face made him step back slowly. JIMIN's heart pounded. Not now. Not after 2 years of silence. Not when he'd come so close to forgetting that letter even existed. Crumpled, yellowing slightly at the corners, folded with the kind of desperation only a boy in love could manage. He moved quickly, pushing the drawer shut, with a force that made the desk rattle. It's just sketches. Unfinished ones. That was a lie, and he's sure Taehyung saw it in his eyes. JIMIN didn't speak again until the door clicked shut behind his friend. Only then did he let his breath out, unsteady, as he sat on the edge of his bed with trembling hands. He opened the drawer, pulled out the envelope with the familiar scrawl, "To JIMIN, when you're ready." He wasn't ready. He hadn't been ready for 730 days. The letter was from Jungkook. 2 years ago, it arrived silently, slipped between the pages of a journal JIMIN had left backstage during rehearsals. No name, no sender, but JIMIN recognized the handwriting instantly. Every curve and flick of the pen engraved in his memory from years of watching Jungkook write lyrics beside him, sketch tattoos on napkins, scribble his thoughts when he thought no one was watching. Back then, they were inseparable, until they weren't. The split was quiet, like a string pulled too tight and suddenly snapping in the middle of a song. No dramatic fights, just an accumulation of silences too heavy to carry, and words that never found the courage to be said. JIMIN remembered everything, especially that letter. That night, he read it again, for the second time in 2 years. JIMIN, the letter began. If you're reading this, it means I couldn't say it to your face. I guess I'm a coward, but I've been in love with you for so long I don't remember how to be anything else. And I know I ruined it. I know I don't deserve another chance. But if one day you feel the same, if one day your silence is just fear and not rejection, then come find me. I'll be waiting. Always. JIMIN folded the letter back, slowly. Outside, the rain had stopped. But inside him, a storm was just beginning. He was standing at the edge of the stage again, only this time, JIMIN wasn't sure if he could breathe. The showcase was packed. Seoul's night buzzed with electricity, a hot hum of excitement hanging in the air outside the venue, like the seconds before lightning. Fans, media, old industry friends, everyone was here. Everyone, except the one person JIMIN couldn't face. Yet. The hall was dimly lit, spotlights cutting through the darkness like knives. JIMIN stood backstage, hidden behind thick curtains, his fingers trembling slightly as he adjusted the cuffs of his suit. He wasn't performing. He wasn't even supposed to be here. But Taehyung begged him to come, said it would give him closure. Closure. JIMIN wanted to laugh. If only feelings obeyed logic. 5 minutes, a voice called. The crowd was chanting now, Jungkook, Jungkook, the name that had once been half of his heartbeat. He looked out, and there he was. Jungkook stepped into the light like he'd never left. Black hair longer now, his jaw sharper, the tattoos on his hands more intricate, but it wasn't the change that shook JIMIN. It was the sameness. The way Jungkook stood, shoulders square, head slightly bowed, his fingers brushing his microphone like it was sacred, as if no time had passed. And yet everything had changed. JIMIN's chest tightened. The first note Jungkook sang was soft, raw, a new song, unreleased. The lyrics flowed out like blood from an old wound. I wrote a letter I was too afraid to send. JIMIN froze. It lived in silence, between the lines of what we never said. No one else knew. No one else could know. But this was the letter. His letter. And then Jungkook looked up, through the lights, into the crowd, toward the shadows at the side of the stage, right at him. JIMIN turned away, fast, his breath hitching, a sound of panic rising in his throat that he barely managed to swallow. He didn't wait for the end of the song. He slipped past security, through corridors smelling of old wood and fresh sweat, down back hallways where memories clung to the walls like ghosts. He needed air. Outside, the night was sharp and cold. The neon lights of the city blurred as he blinked too fast, too hard. He couldn't do this. He thought he could handle it, but Jungkook had never been just a memory. He was a fault line. One touch and JIMIN cracked open. Running again? The voice came from behind him. Low, uncertain. JIMIN turned slowly. Jungkook stood at the doorway, still in stage clothes, hair damp with sweat, chest heaving. But his eyes, those eyes, were locked on JIMIN with a familiar fire. Not anger, not blame. Something far more dangerous. Hope. You read it, Jungkook said. Not a question. JIMIN said nothing. Why didn't you say anything? JIMIN left bitterly. What would I have said? Thanks for the heartbreak? Here's mine too? Jungkook stepped closer. I waited. You disappeared. I didn't know how to stay. The words hung heavy, honest, jagged. JIMIN clenched his fists. Emotions flooded in waves. Guilt, regret, longing, anger. He stood abruptly and moved to the piano in the corner of the room, the one covered in dust from months of avoidance. He hadn't written a full song in over a year, but tonight his fingers hovered over the keys as if the music had never left him. He began to play, soft, hesitant, then harder. Fragments of a song began to form, one Jungkook would never hear, one JIMIN didn't even know how to finish. Suddenly, a knock at the door. JIMIN stiffened. 3 a.m. No one should be here. He stood, the silence between the knocks growing heavier. He opened the door slowly. Not JIMIN. Not Jungkook. But Taehyung. Hair messy, jacket thrown on carelessly, worry in his eyes. JIMIN, we have a problem. JIMIN blinked. What? Taehyung entered, holding his phone out. Look at this. JIMIN took it. A headline. Unreleased song at Jungkook's showcase sparks speculation. Is it about Park JIMIN? Below it, a blurry photo of JIMIN standing backstage, peeking from the shadows. And under that, fan comments, thousands of them. Was JIMIN there? Are they still in love? The letter rumor is real? This explains everything. JIMIN's blood ran cold. The comments were already spiraling. Conspiracies forming, edits, fan theories, accusations. This can't be happening, he whispered.
It's already viral, Taehyung said, pacing. And it's not just fans. Labels are asking questions. People think you're planning a comeback together. Jungkook's name is trending with yours again. JIMIN sat down hard on the couch, dizzy. 2 years. He had spent 2 years rebuilding himself, away from the chaos, the cameras, the obsession with who he loved and how he lived. And now all of it was back. Worse, it was all because of the one thing he had tried so hard to keep hidden. The letter. He picked it up again, now tainted by the glow of a screen that never loved them like it claimed. "He didn't mean for this to happen," Jimin murmured. "No," Taehyung agreed, "but it happened. So what do you want to do?" Jimin was quiet. That night, he sat alone again. No music, no lights, just the sound of traffic below and the echo of his own heartbeat. He looked at the letter one last time before carefully sliding it into a new envelope. He wrote nothing on it, just sealed it gently, then tucked it into his coat pocket. He left the apartment without telling anyone, not even Taehyung. He took a taxi to a place he hadn't dared return to in months. A familiar building, tall, quiet, private. He entered the lobby, greeted the doorman like a ghost, rode the elevator in silence. Apartment 1407. He stood in front of it for a long moment, then knocked. Once, twice, no answer. He knocked again, and then, click. The door opened. Jungkook stood there, shirtless, bleary-eyed. A moment of stunned silence passed. "Jimin?" His voice cracked with sleep and disbelief. Jimin didn't hesitate. He stepped forward and placed the letter in Jungkook's hand. "What is this?" A reply. Jungkook stared at it, confused. "I wasn't ready then, but I think I'm starting to be." Jungkook looked up, hope flickering behind the fatigue. "I don't know if we can fix everything, but maybe we can start again, with truth this time. No silence, no hiding." Jungkook didn't speak. He simply opened the letter, unfolded the paper inside, and read, "If you're still waiting, I'm still listening." For the first time in 2 years, neither of them turned away. And for the first time in a long time, Jimin didn't feel broken. He felt whole, or at least, almost. "I don't want this to be a secret anymore." Jungkook's voice barely rose above the faint hum of the city filtering in through the windows, but the weight behind it landed like thunder between them. Jimin sat at the edge of Jungkook's bed, knees drawn up, hands clasped tightly in his lap. The letter lay open again on the nightstand, the ink still fresh from his reply. He hadn't planned to stay, hadn't even planned to talk. But hours had passed. Conversations had unraveled. Apologies had been exchanged. Not loud or dramatic, but slow, tender, like relearning how to speak in a language both of them had forgotten. And now all of this. Jimin looked up. "What do you mean?" "I mean, us." Jungkook moved closer, brushing his shoulder against Jimin's. "What we had, and maybe what we still have, it deserves to exist out loud." But Jimin's chest tightened. He thought of the photos, the theories, the rabid speculation already brewing online, the pressure, the scrutiny. He had spent the last 2 years learning how to be private, how to be safe. Letting this back into the light might mean destroying all of that. "I don't know if I'm strong enough. I don't know if we are." Jungkook didn't look disappointed. He only nodded, understanding, and reached out to take Jimin's hand. "Then we don't rush it. But promise me we won't hide from each other anymore." Jimin squeezed his hand. "That I can promise." The days that followed moved with an odd kind of quiet intensity.
The world outside kept spinning, speculation rising, media stories piling up, fan edits multiplying like wildfire. Yet inside Jungkook's apartment, time slowed. They began meeting in secret again, not to hide, but to rebuild. Coffee in the early morning, long walks down Han River in disguise, old guitars, unopened notebooks, and laughter so unfamiliar that it felt new again. Still, the world pushed in. A week after their reunion, JIMIN's agency called. People want answers. Is there a comeback? Are you working with Jungkook again? What's the relationship? JIMIN sat in his studio staring at the blank canvas in front of him. Tell them nothing. Not yet. But silence was its own kind of noise. Later that evening, Taehyung visited again. He dropped a tabloid magazine on JIMIN's desk, without a word. On the cover, exclusive, leaked voice notes reveal intimate confessions between JIMIN and Jungkook.
Inside, snippets. A song demo JIMIN had recorded privately. A low voice, Jungkook's, saying, "I still love him." How the hell did they get this? JIMIN asked, fury rising in his throat. Someone close, Taehyung said grimly. Maybe someone in the label. Or the studio. JIMIN felt the walls closing in again. The invasion, the twisting of their truth. He called Jungkook. "We have to stop this," JIMIN said. "This leak. It's going to destroy everything we just started to rebuild." "Then maybe we stop letting other people tell our story," Jungkook replied quietly. "Let's tell it ourselves." JIMIN hesitated. "You mean go public?" "Yes. Together. Not through rumors, not through hints, through our own words." The fear returned instantly, not of being seen with Jungkook, but of what it might cost. The peace, the privacy, the fragile trust they were still stitching back together. But then he thought of the letter. The one Jungkook had written 2 years ago, not knowing if it would ever be read. And his reply. "If you're still waiting, I'm still listening." Maybe listening meant hearing the noise too, standing in it. Together. The next day, they recorded a video. Simple, honest. 2 chairs, 1 camera, no script. Just JIMIN and Jungkook, sitting side by side. Jungkook spoke first. "We've both been silent for a long time, maybe too long, but this time we wanted to speak for ourselves." JIMIN nodded, eyes calm but steady. "We're not here to confirm or deny rumors. We're here to say, we're real people. We've made mistakes. We've been hurt. But we're also healing. Together." And then JIMIN turned to Jungkook and said, "You wrote me a letter when you couldn't speak. I want to speak now, so I don't have to write one later." He took a breath. "I love you." Not whispered, not hidden. And for the first time, the world could watch them. Flawed, open, brave. And choose for itself whether to tear them down or finally let them breathe. There was no applause, no lights, no stage, just silence and the weight of a world watching. The video went live at 11:58 p.m., a time chosen deliberately, between one day and the next, when everything felt suspended, not quite real. Within minutes, it spread like wildfire. JIMIN and Jungkook, sitting side by side. Vulnerable, honest. No flashy production, no PR spin, just the truth.
spoken plainly without permission. By dawn, the video had over 15 million views. And the reactions? A storm of noise. Some cheered, some cried, some screamed betrayal. Others declared it the most courageous act of their generation. Fans wrote essays, journalists drafted op-eds, agencies scrambled, but none of that mattered. Not anymore. Because for the first time in 2 years, JIMIN could breathe. They stayed inside the apartment that day, disconnected from everything. Phones off. No interviews. No statements. Just music. Playing softly from an old speaker. And sunlight pouring through half-closed blinds. Jungkook lay on the floor, staring at the ceiling. You know we might have destroyed everything. JIMIN curled up near the window, sipping coffee. Didn't even flinch. Or maybe we finally started something honest. There was a long pause before Jungkook murmured, "I was terrified when I wrote that letter." JIMIN looked over. "Why did you write it instead of just telling me?" "Because I thought you'd never forgive me. I thought that if I looked you in the eye, I'd fall apart. And I needed to say it all. Just once. Without fear." JIMIN set down his mug. His voice was quiet. "You hurt me, you know. Disappearing like that. Leaving me with silence. I know. But I hurt you too." JIMIN admitted. "By pretending I didn't care. By burying your letter like it was something shameful. I kept it because I couldn't let go. But I also couldn't face what it meant." They looked at each other then. Not with bitterness, but with the fragile understanding of two people who had walked through fire and still chosen to reach out. Later that week, the media frenzy swelled to a peak. There were protests outside the agency buildings. There were trending hashtags demanding their removal, their celebration, their silence. And then, unexpectedly, an open letter appeared. Signed by hundreds of artists, writers, fellow idols, quiet allies, loud friends. Let them love in peace. It became a movement overnight. JIMIN and Jungkook didn't make another video. They didn't need to. They disappeared from the public eye for a while, not out of fear this time, but choice. They traveled together. No schedules, no cameras. They visited places where no one knew their names. Woke up to ocean wind and unfamiliar languages. Found new pieces of themselves scattered across cities that never asked them to be more than human. Sometimes they fought. About small things. Who forgot the room key? Who burned the rice? Whether to take the night train or wait till morning. But they never walked away, and one night in Lisbon, on a hotel rooftop drenched in moonlight and the hum of street musicians far below, JIMIN pulled out something folded, fragile, worn. The original letter. He handed it back to Jungkook. "I don't want to keep it hidden anymore," he said. Jungkook unfolded it carefully, read it one last time. Then, with trembling fingers, he set it down on the table between them. and struck a match. The paper curled, blackened, turned to ash that danced in the wind. "What are you doing?" Jimin whispered. "Letting go," Jungkook replied, "so we can start writing new ones." They watched in silence. The flame was small, but its light was enough. Months passed. The world moved on. Their fans, those who stayed, didn't just accept the truth, they guarded it, protected it. Jimin and Jungkook eventually returned to music, together. Not as a brand, not as an image, but as two voices that finally had nothing left to prove. Their first track dropped quietly. No teasers, no hype, just a simple title, After the Silence. It climbed the charts slowly, not with noise, but with resonance. In interviews, when asked what the song meant, Jimin simply said, "It's not about the past, it's about everything that came after." And when asked if they regretted going public, Jungkook smiled and answered, "Only that we didn't do it sooner." Love stories are rarely simple. They are messy, painful, unfiltered. But sometimes, if you're lucky, they survive the fire. Not untouched, but truer than ever. Some letters are never meant to be read. Others, once opened, change everything. 2 years ago, Jimin was someone else. A boy folded in on himself, holding love in his chest like a secret too heavy to carry and too precious to release. He had lived in silence, in fear, in the spaces between almost and never. But now he stood in front of a small crowd in a hidden soul venue, guitar in hand, eyes calm, voice sure. The place was intimate. No cameras, no press, just people who had come not for spectacle, but for story. Among them, Jungkook sat in the front row, his hands folded on his lap, a quiet pride in his gaze. They weren't hiding anymore, but they weren't performing their love either. They were just living it. Jimin leaned into the mic. "This next song isn't on any album. I never thought I'd share it." He looked down at the strings, then back at the crowd. "But I think it's time." He played. The chords were simple, familiar, like a heart learning to beat again. The lyrics told a story of two people who loved in silence, broke in silence, and returned, not as the same, but as something stronger, something scarred and luminous. And in the final verse he sang, "You waited through the silence. I listened through the fear. And when I found your letter, I knew you were still near." The room held its breath. When the last note faded, no one clapped right away. The quiet was reverent, as if even sound knew better than to interrupt something so raw. After the show, Jimin found Jungkook leaning against the wall outside the venue, arms crossed, waiting with a half-smile that still made Jimin's heart trip in the best way. "You wrote that recently?" Jungkook asked. "No," Jimin said, stepping close. "I wrote it 2 years ago, the night I first read your letter. I just didn't have the courage to finish it." Jungkook tilted his head. "What changed?" "You," Jimin replied. "You waited. You stayed." They walked home together after that, hand in hand, not needing to say more. The night was cool, and the city, once a battlefield, now felt like their own again. Inside their apartment, framed on the wall beside the piano, hung something simple. A replica of the letter, not the original. Because some things, like scars and fire, belong to memory more than display. Below it, a line was written in small, neat handwriting. "If you're still waiting, I'm still listening." And beside it, another, added months later in matching ink. "I'm not waiting anymore. I'm right here. Because some stories don't end with goodbye. They begin with the moment someone chooses to stay. And when love is real, finally seen, finally spoken, it doesn't need to be hidden in letters. It writes itself in every shared morning, every silent understanding, every song that starts again.